Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Cover One Draft Weekly. John Helmkamp, my buddy, as always. Nope, pointed the wrong
This
way.
way, over here.
Daniel Harms. Yeah, you're backwards from where I'm pointing to where you are on my screen. How you doing, buddy? Glad we're back.
Whew, yeah, doing good, man. Baseball season just started. I know we're talking about the draft, but I'm wearing a Detroit Tigers hat because I am a Tigers fan, and now they finally lost a game for the first time, so now the season can finally start. But I'm doing fantastic, and this is going to be a lot of fun today. Back after a couple of weeks, John's alive and well. He almost didn't make it, but I'll let you tell that story.
Boy, it kicked my butt for the last 8 days, something like that. I finally feel pretty close to 100%. Like I'm almost there. But man, this virus was brutal. So I'm very sad that I've missed 2 of the last 4 weeks, and that we've had to postpone. We're in the final sprint here to the NFL draft. I'm hoping that we just got it out of the way, and then we can just crank on some good draft content here for the next couple weeks. I'm waiting for that credential approval to come through in my email to be at the NFL draft, but it's looking, I'd say, likely at this point. So I'm stoked, man. It is full on draft season. It's also hashtag smokescreen season out there in these streets right now. So excited to kind of get into some of this. What we are going to do for you listeners today, we're taking Lance Zierlein's latest mock draft, and we're going to just kind of comb through it because we have some thoughts. I want to preface this by saying this is nothing against Lance. No, I love Lance, and his work is fantastic. And quite frankly, no one knows how the NFL draft is going to go. It could absolutely mirror this. It could. I think my thoughts are predominantly if these NFL teams make these choices, I will have some serious questions for these NFL teams, not for Lance Zierlein.
Oh, absolutely. That's what this is. It's like Lance's thought process for this. Okay, fine. But if the teams are the ones actually pulling the triggers on some of these things, maybe they saw this and were like, hey, that's a good idea. And then we can understand that that's not the best thought process for some of these GMs. And again, no shot at Lance, but when we're looking at mock drafts, that's what it is. We see needs. We see teams that need quarterbacks, that need wide receivers. So yes, John and I are going to have some thoughts on this 3.0 mock from Lance Zierlein. We're going to take a look at the top 5 of his 3.0 mock. John, why don't you tell the good people what we got here for these 5 teams?
We're gonna throw it up on the screen here so that everyone at home can follow along, kind of watching on YouTube, which is where you should absolutely be watching this because, hey, we got a really pretty setup. I love our background. I love our colors.
It's really fantastic.
It's really developed quite a bit, and I love it.
Thank Aaron Quinn over at Cover One for that. It's a fantastic job.
Shout out Aaron Quinn, the graphic goat, apparently. This starts off, no surprise. We have Caleb Williams 101 to the Chicago Bears, which at this point, after the trade of Justin Fields, where they sent him to Pittsburgh, I mean, this is all but locked in stone. This is probably the most locked in 101 that I can remember. I can't remember a single first overall pick with this much certainty. I mean, Trevor Lawrence thing. Lawrence was assumed, but Justin Fields was right there, kind of nipping at the heels a little. There was maybe a little bit of
Fields
conversation.
Didn't even go to what, 12? 8? Like it was later down there, so no, it was pretty locked in.
Okay, well, thank you. Just throw your pee on my parade here.
No, it's the cold water. It's the cold water.
It was a cold shower. But Caleb Williams to Chicago, it's basically written in stone. We'll move on. Second overall, the Washington Commanders go Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. Third overall, the New York Giants trade up with the Patriots. We'll get into this. Save your thoughts. To take Drake May. Number 4 overall after this little advertisement here. Another trade. The Arizona Cardinals trade the rights to the 4th overall pick to the Minnesota Vikings to select J.J. McCarthy, which then leaves the Chargers, 5th overall, Marvin Harrison Jr. So that's the top 5 here. I will say initial thoughts off the cuff. There's a lot of steam building for quarterbacks to go first 4 picks. Whether or not we think that is the right valuation or whatever, the NFL loves their quarterbacks. They need their quarterbacks. Teams are desperate for it. I'm forgetting the stat. I don't have it off the top of my head, but like 1 quarterback drafted or 2 quarterbacks drafted since 2021 are slated to start for the team that drafted them this coming year in 2024. And it's like 2 out of 17 or something along those lines. It's crazy. There's a major quarterback evaluation development issue currently happening across the NFL. What are your thoughts on us seeing potentially 4 quarterbacks go off the board in the first 4 picks?
I think it's absolutely absurd because it's historically inaccurate. Like, it doesn't happen. And I understand that this is a good quarterback class, that it's projected next year's isn't going to be great. Well, when we came into this year's, it was, well, there's Drake May and there's Caleb Williams. Who's after that? Well, guess what? Jaden Daniels made a hell of a case, played fantastic football for the first time in his career, and is projected to go in the top 3. JJ McCarthy in this very draft, who everyone was like, well, he's not playing great. He's in an offense that doesn't allow him to showcase his talents. Here he is at number 4. Like, these mocks. I also remember, by the way, when Will Levis was a first-round pick, a top 10 pick last year, and the year before that, when Malik Willis was a top 10 pick. So all of these things can be said a little tongue-in-cheek. And if it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and all 4 picks are quarterbacks, then we have to, again, go back to the teams. We got to stop with the Arizona Cardinals, by the way. We got to stop. Okay? We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Don't you worry. We will get to it. But trading out and doing what they're going to do in this draft makes no sense. It makes no sense. But John, you take over.
I agree with what you're saying. I do think that what we've seen across the NFL with the quarterback borderline desperation that's been transpiring lately, I think that there's a pretty decent case to be made for this actually happening. Whether or not we agree with the valuation is an entirely different question. Because these teams that are there, they need quarterbacks. And I think that this is just the way that the NFL goes right now, that we're looking at teams that are desperate and they want to go up and they want to fill the spot. Listen, 2-3 months ago, you and I were out here talking, geez, maybe it was like 5 months ago now. Boy, that went quick. We were out here talking about JJ McCarthy, saying that we think that he would be better suited to go back to college.
Yeah.
I still agree with that sentiment. I still think that he could use a little polish, and especially looking at a quarterback class next year that looks like it could be weak. JJ McCarthy could potentially be the first overall pick in 2025 if he had returned to school this year, but that's not happening. So we've talked about it a lot on this show, that he does still need some development, that he needs to go to a situation that is going to allow him to kind of sit and learn behind a veteran. Well, we have right here going to the Minnesota Vikings. The veteran that he's learning behind is Sam Darnold now after this free agency period. That's not exactly what I had in mind. However, then you look at the weapons that they have in Minnesota, and okay, that's a fun landing spot for JJ to go to be able to play with potentially Justin Jefferson if they ever hammer out that what's going to be a $35 million a year AAV contract, and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. Like, they've got pieces. They've got a great supporting cast. But I don't know, man. I'm having a hard time with these quarterbacks. And the first thing that I want to say that is not going to happen, what's not going to happen is the Patriots trading out a 3rd overall when Drake May's on the board to give Drake May to the New York Giants, when the quarterback room in New England right now is absolutely abysmal. Yeah. The only way that this would go is if the Giants are sending a truckload. I mean, it would have to be a massive haul that might even have to include Daniel Jones. I don't know. I don't know what the trade compensation would have to look like, but New England needs a quarterback in a big way. Mac Jones ain't it. It has not panned out. Mac Jones is gone now.
He's that
experiment. Yeah, that experiment is over. If you're looking at Drake May or even Jaden Daniels being there for the Patriots at 3, I have a hard time thinking that they don't just select either of those 2 quarterbacks, run to the podium, start having their press conferences where it's a whole new age. It's the post Bill Belichick. It's the Gerard Mayo. It's a fresh start where they just start leaning right into that rhetoric and off we go.
Yeah, this doesn't make much sense to me either, specifically because the Patriots, they have their starter for the year. They do. And it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. He's going to start the whole season. So whoever they draft will be able to sit and learn from a guy who's played in multiple different systems, who knows how to execute multiple different systems, and in a team that knows that they can't win this year. They can't do it. So there's no reason to put a rookie out there. But that doesn't mean you don't take the quarterback. You don't do this. And also, how are the Cardinals okay with the Vikings giving them 23 and going from 11 to 4? How is that any way, shape, or form enough to go get JJ McCarthy for the Cardinals? Giving up Marvin Harrison Jr. for number 23 makes no sense unless there's like far more in this package. This move makes no sense. So we don't know much about the Giants move up with the trade package, but this one says swap 4 and 11 and you can have 23 as well. That makes zero sense to me, and the Cardinals would absolutely not take that trade. So all of those things aside, the Chargers landing with Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a fantastic spot for him. And yes, I would love it. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love it.
I'm just starting to think that there's a pretty decent chance that this happens because the NFL is crazy and the NFL wants their quarterbacks. In some combination, I do think we're potentially looking at 4 quarterbacks to go off the board. I don't know, man. And again, like you brought up earlier, Will Levis was supposed to be number 4 overall to Indy. Yeah. Like I remember, I was there. We were in those streets. But I don't know. I think this quarterback class has people very, very peaked. I think JJ McCarthy has some serious raw talent and abilities that are going to be able to make that possible. I do agree that I think the most likely scenario, though, is that Arizona just looks at Marvin Harrison Jr. and goes, oh, hey, remember how we had Larry Fitzgerald forever? Well, let's just get Marvin Harrison Jr., who gets comps to Larry Fitz all the time, and let's just lock in what could theoretically potentially be an all-pro Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver. Listen, I'm not putting that expectation on any rookie coming into the league, but that is within the range of outcomes for Marvin Harrison Jr. Absolutely. When you look at his skill set, he could lock down the number 1 wide receiver position for Kyler Murray. And if the Kyler Murray experience doesn't work out, great. He's probably still there on a rookie contract when they get their next quarterback, and you give yourselves a surefire stud number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I would do that with Kyler Murray. But let's go ahead and get to number 6 through 10 here. And as we come off to number 6, the New England Patriots, who had the number 3, trade down with the Giants, and then they select Malik Neighbors. So half of the thought process there is working out. And then number 7, we've got Tennessee Titans picking the other locked in stone guy. Joe Alt going to the Tennessee Titans is basically locked in stone unless he goes higher to Jim Harbaugh. But we'll talk about that as it gets going. Number 8, the Atlanta Falcons take the first defensive player off the board with Jared Verse. Number 9, the Chicago Bears.
That'd be a home run pick, by the way, in my opinion. Jared Verse to Atlanta.
It'd be a lot of fun. Chicago Bears take Rome Odunze at number 9. Another fantastic pick there. And then we get a little spicy with the Jets taking Brock Bowers at number 10. So from 6 to 10, I want you just to pick out one of these picks and talk about it. I think I know where you're going to go with it. But what's your favorite thing that happens right here?
I'm going to tell you something that's not in that mock. And this is Rome Odunze sitting here on the board for Chicago at number 9. In my opinion, this is a screaming trade out situation. I know there's people that are going to look at this and go, yeah, absolutely. DJ Moore is there. Keenan Allen is old at this point. He's a nice kind of veteran stopgap. He's not your wide receiver 1 of the future. But in my opinion, the Chicago Bears only having 4 picks in this draft class. Once you get Caleb Williams at 1, I think we could be looking at a situation where Ryan Poles is sitting there and he's fielding a ton of phone calls. If this is the situation where Rome Odunze is available, man, if I'm him, I would be looking to trade out of this pick. Listen, I floated this idea 1,000 times. I was combing through because I swear I said it on our show. I swear I said it, but I couldn't find the clip of Buffalo making a big trade up from 28 to 9 to go get Romadunze if Chicago's on the clock here and Romadunze is available. It would take 28. It would take their 2025 first. It would probably take a 2025 second as well in order to pull that trade off. It's going to be somewhere in that valuation ballpark wise in order to get up. But if I'm Chicago, knowing that you're locking in your QB1, you're resetting the clock on the salary, all that stuff, I would reload. I would be looking to trade out of this pick, get an extra first next year, an extra high caliber pick, whether it's a second or maybe it's like a couple thirds or a third and a fourth or whatever it is. It's a great trade out situation. But hey, if they do stick and pick, you're looking at one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Romadunze. That's just dirty. I mean, that is insane. I don't know who's your wide receiver one. I don't know who you guard first. That is a really, really tough room to go up against on defense.
I think you can make the argument that in the next two draft classes, with the picks that they get from this trade back, if Buffalo were to do that, Romadunze likely is the best player of any of the ones that the Chicago Bears could draft in the 20s, in the late 20s. Again, assuming the Bills can still be competitive. So I understand that the need to maybe fill the cupboards a little bit, but you also have a responsibility to Caleb Williams. And for everything that Romadunze is, I mean, and that Keenan Allen has been, like you said, these guys are getting a little bit older. Romadunze comes in. That's, like you said, one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL. So I would personally stay and take the receiver because he's going to be there for a long time paired with Caleb Williams. But that's me. You know, I'm not a GM, not in the front office. I think that the most interesting thing here, again, going back to the Atlanta Falcons picking Jared Verse, and a lot of people are going to ask, well, why wasn't Dallas Turner off the board? Well, Dallas Turner has a lot of tools. He does not have the speed to power that Jared Verse has. He doesn't have the power. He doesn't. And I really do think that the one thing that the Atlanta Falcons need is a guy with speed to power to be able to fill out that defensive line, to get pressure, to get that defense to the next level. So this is a pick on upside, a true upside pick for a guy who has a ton of physical ability. And I also really love this because in one of the calls that we have, I'll go back and find it. If this does happen, I call Jared Verse being the first defensive player drafted. So that would make me really happy to see this happen. But it makes a lot of sense when you think about the construction of their defensive line. They have a couple of there's a guy out of Penn State from a few years ago that they had drafted. The name is escaping me. That a lot. Arnold Ebiketie was one of their second round draft picks, I believe, that hasn't really come along, and he could be the two. He wouldn't have to be the one. You could have Jared Verse come in and help give some of that, get it off of his chest. So I think this makes a lot of sense, and this might be my most interesting pick. I think obviously with these other guys being a little bit of chalk, Verse comes in as a top 10 pick and kind of is a little bit crazier than people are expecting him. So I like that one quite a bit.
Yeah, I love this. I think Jared Verse is a stud and a disruptor. And like you said, the speed to power is terrific with him. This gives you that kind of building block, defensive end. They were able to sign Kirk Cousins. They've got a veteran quarterback there that can play. So you already have the offensive skill players. You've invested in like 4 straight high first round picks at skill position, basically three picks. But you have so many studs that you've drafted that are still young, that are on their rookie contracts, that can play. Now you get a savvy veteran quarterback who's better than most people give him credit for. And then you go and you get a high upside, twitched up edge in Jared Verse. Yeah, in the NFC South, which is a pretty winnable division, Atlanta could go from being a top 10 pick like this to being a playoff team. That's a very realistic jump, I think, for Atlanta. And then you start looking at 2025 and you go, okay, how do we keep building from there? Now that we have a cornerstone on defense, our offense is set. We've got Kirko under contract for a few years. You start making moves to try to chase down that window. I think that it's a really good pick.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So that's the top 10 right there. I'm not really upset with anything. Brock Bowers makes sense considering they don't have a tight end, and Aaron Rodgers really, realistically, this could be his last year. So if he's going to play, get him as many weapons as you can. And Brock
They are
Bowers is
all in.
exactly that. He is a weapon. So let's continue on here with pick 11, where the Arizona Cardinals traded with the Vikings. They select Dallas Turner, edge out of Alabama. That's an interesting pick there. Denver Broncos at number 12, Quinyon Mitchell, Toledo cornerback. He becomes the first cornerback drafted, which would not surprise me. The Las Vegas Raiders select J.C. Latham,
as
right
the
tackle.
first as the first offensive tackle drafted.
Number two.
Oh, sorry.
Number two.
Alt
was the first. So at 13, sorry. The Raiders go go bold. What the Raiders do, they follow their board, no one else's. At number 14, the New Orleans Saints select Olu Fashanu, falling down to number 14 with Ryan Ramczyk's injury. Makes sense. 15 with the Indianapolis Colts, they go to Byron Murphy. I got thoughts on that one. Defensive tackle, Texas. Number 16. Now the Seahawks trade down with the Cardinals, who come up and get Brian Thomas Jr. instead of drafting Marvin Harrison at 4. The Jacksonville Jaguars at 17 select Terrion Arnold, Alabama cornerback. 18. Cincinnati Bengals select Troy Fatanu, Washington left tackle, but can play anywhere. At number 19, the Los Angeles Rams select Laiatu Latu, edge out of UCLA. And at number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers select one of the most Pittsburgh Steeler type players in this draft, Talise Fuaga, offensive tackle out of Oregon State. So from 11 to 20, we've got some legitimate, actual, in my opinion, some craziness. I think that there are a lot of things here that I'm not going to say that can't happen. Obviously, this is the draft, but there are a lot of picks here that don't make a ton of sense. Some players you're just going to take and you're going to think about it later. But going through this, I would like to hear your thoughts on a pick or two that you really like, and maybe a pick or two that you don't really like. Just kind of give me a feel for this 11 through 10 to 20 range for you.
I mean, Denver is in a very, very difficult world of hurt kind of situation right now. They moved on from Russell Wilson. They have basically nothing going at the quarterback position right now. It's hard for me to see them just kind of stick at 12 here. And as much as we love Quinyon Mitchell,
yes,
it's hard for me to see them sticking and taking Quinyon Mitchell at 12 to go opposite Pat Surtain, and to look at that and be like, that's a realistic, good choice for us to make in our rebuild process when quarterback is just non-existent, basically. Now, I guess in this situation, what happens is they see the trade flurry of teams going up into the top 4 to go 4 quarterbacks in a row. And they probably go, okay, that price is too high. I'm not interested in paying that price to get up there for one of those 4 guys. But it's hard. It's like, what's the quarterback plan then? Like, you do need to have a plan at quarterback. You missed on everyone in free agency. Like, there's nothing going there at quarterback for Denver. And like I said, as much as I love Quinyon Mitchell, it's like, great, throw him opposite Pat Surtain, and that's a lockdown 1-2 duo at the cornerback position. But what else are we doing? You guys lost Jerry Jeudy. He went to the Browns and they gave him a big contract. They extended him. I don't know. It's tough. It's hard to see the roadmap here if you're Denver, unless they're just putting all their eggs in the basket of being able to get, I don't know, like a Spencer Rattler. Like if they're putting all their eggs in that basket and being like, okay, we're not going first round quarterback. It's not worth the price for us to move up, but we're going to go get Rattler. Or maybe they can swing it for like a Bo Nix or something like that potentially later. I don't know. But it's hard for me to see this pick kind of making a lot of sense from a roster construction standpoint.
Let's just really quick look at their defensive line, because this is a lot of fun. You've got Byron Murphy on the board. Okay. And I'm going to
Cool.
read to you guys the names of the guys of the defensive line that's playing in Denver this season. Malcolm Roach at defensive end. DJ Jones, nose tackle, fine. Zach Allen, right defensive end, fine. And then you got Baron Browning, a good player.
Yeah.
Okay. You got Laitu Latu on the board, who's the best technician in this class as a pass rusher. You put him on the opposite side of a guy who's a really, really good athlete, speed first kind of pass rusher. You might have some to cook in there. Or you just say, hey, we have one of the best defensive tackles maybe that could play in the NFL, a guy who gets likened to Aaron Donald and Byron Murphy. But no, we're going to take Quinyon Mitchell. But no. I love Quinyon. This makes no sense. They should be drafting either Byron Murphy or Laitu Latu if they're going to stick at 12. Or they trade back and they pick up some assets and they look for a quarterback. But this is where I think it makes a lot of sense for one of these defensive players. And then the Broncos come back up in the second round and they draft a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix. That's what I think is going to happen. Personally, that's my own opinion. But I wouldn't be going cornerback here. That one makes no sense to me. One of the ones that doesn't make, I'm going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals now. So the Arizona Cardinals traded out of number 4 down into number 11 to draft Dallas Turner. Okay, fine. They need Dallas Turner. That's fine.
Yeah.
But the trade-off is that you get Brian Thomas at 16 that they traded up with to get that. So you have Marvin Harrison Jr. on one hand, and then the other hand you have Dallas Turner and Brian Thomas Jr. I don't like this just because Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to drastically improve everything about that offense when he steps on the field. And Brian Thomas is a one-year wonder with 17 touchdowns and all of them, like 10 of them on go routes. You think NFL defenses are going to be like, hey, we're going to let that really fast guy just run by us the whole time? No, that's not going to happen very much. So I struggle with this one because we got to stop doing this with the Cardinals where they trade back and they don't select the maybe best player in this entire draft in Marvin Harrison Jr. and they try to just dink and dunk around the draft and not really make a ton of picks. And they still have one later in the draft where they can maybe trade up and go get a Dallas Turner or one of these edge rushers a little bit later with Marvin Harrison. So I don't like it at all. I really don't, but I love the Olu Fashanu to the New Orleans Saints. This makes a ton of sense. And if he falls down here, I mean, this is such a New Orleans pick that, especially with the Ryan Ramczyk stuff, like they have Trevor Penning from a few years ago that they drafted, and he's been in development. This is another developmental guy, but he's already really, really polished as a pass protector, in my opinion. And he's still learning some of his, technical aspects, but he's very, very powerful. He wants to attack. He wants to physically impose himself. And that's something that I think he and Trevor Penning have in common. So we could really see this offense with, Alvin Kamara starting to maybe hand the baton off to Kendre Miller, who I love. I think this would be a fantastic pick, and you could really see Kendre Miller becoming the next guy because of everything that he offers from that power, the speed, and the contact balance that he plays with. So I love this pick.
Yeah, we love Olu Fashanu, man. He's a stud, and in my opinion, this would be a slam dunk. I'm not going to spend any more time on the Arizona Cardinals conversation that we just had because I agree with you. It makes no sense. If you do trade down, it's because you're looking to accumulate as much potential value as possible, that you're looking to just like hoard picks. You know what I mean? Yeah. To then trade back up for a Brian Thomas Jr. makes no sense to me. I don't see them trading out, period. But if they do, because there's a team that's quarterback hungry that wants to come up and make that move, coming back up for Brian Thomas Jr. is just not the play. But Olu Fashanu here to the Saints, love it. I think he slots in as their starting left tackle. I think you maybe move Penning because he's been kind of struggling a little bit there. But I think that gives you a really good duo to potentially build around. And it's really interesting. Let's get out of the 20s here. I think this is pretty on par though, and to be expected if we're being honest about a real offensive tackle run happening here in the teens. I think that is a realistic element of this mock, where I think we're going to see a lot of offensive tackles come off the board in a hurry. between maybe 8, 9, 10, and then getting down into the late teens. I mean, you could have 5 go in those 10 picks. You could have a lot of offensive tackles go. Let's move on into the 20s here. We're going to scroll down past all these lovely advertisements. Chop Robinson at 21 overall to Miami. At 22, Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson to Philly. At 23, you have... What is this? This is the trade down. This is the Arizona Cardinals pick where they made that swap. So Seattle at pick 23 takes Graham Barton, interior offensive lineman out of Duke. That's probably the highest that I've seen Graham Barton go, even though we like him. 24, Tyler Guyton, Oklahoma offensive tackle to the Dallas Cowboys. That's pretty fun. 25, Green Bay Packers take safety Tyler Nubin, the first safety off the board. I think there's a pretty realistic chance of that happening. I've seen a lot of stuff linking Nubin to Green Bay. I don't know. I'm not ruling that one out, even though it feels early. 26, the Washington Commanders get probably the best value here in taking Amarius Mims at offensive tackle out of Georgia. That would be a stud. This would be a trade with Tampa Bay where they would be looking to come up here into the first round and get a potential very, very high ceiling offensive tackle in Amarius Mims. 27, Arizona takes cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. At pick 28, we know... Whoa, sorry, that just jumped. They put a video in there. Pick 28, after the Stephon Diggs move that sent
This
Diggs
was before.
This was before, but now looking at it, everyone and their mother knows that the Buffalo Bills are going wide receiver very, very early in this draft, whether it's with a trade up, trading for a veteran from another team, whatever it's going to be. Brandon Beane is going to have to cook to get a wide receiver 1 onto this roster. Asking A.D. Mitchell to be that from day one, though, I don't love. Pick 29, the Detroit Lions go Cooper DeJean, defensive back, who could play corner, could play safety. I'm kind of curious to see where he's going to end up slotting in at the NFL. Personally, I like him better as a corner. We can get into that. But the Lions get another person to fill out that defensive back room. Pick 30, the Baltimore Ravens take Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle out of Arizona, the highest I've seen Morgan go by a lot. Let's just round up the last 2 picks here since we're on it. San Francisco 49ers at 31, Darius Robinson, kind of a tweener, maybe 3-tech defensive lineman, goes to the 49ers. Your Kansas City Chiefs, every single mock that I've seen has them taking a wide receiver of some flavor at pick 32. This one has Ladd McConkey, who we love. I swear to God, if Ladd goes to Kansas City and my Bills have to deal with him in the playoffs, it's going to be like watching Julian Edelman cook defenses in the playoffs for a decade plus, and it's going to piss me off to no end. So that's 20 through 32, back of the first. How you feeling? What's something that stands out to you? What are your general thoughts?
I'm going to go to the one thing here that I don't like and one thing that I really do like. I don't like Tyler Nubin to the Packers. They have athletic thresholds. They do. This is a very well-known fact in anything. You look at all of the players that they draft, they talk about it too. Like, this is not an unknown thing for Brian Gutekunst in Green Bay. Like, they prefer athletic guys. And yes, Tyler Nubin is instinctual. He sees the ball very well. I think he sees the field extremely well. He's multiple, but he's not athletic. He is not an athletic player. So for everything that they've done over the past couple of years, building this young, youthful, athletic roster, Tyler Nubin at 25 doesn't make much sense to me. So I don't like that, especially after you bring in Xavier McKinney. You don't have to take a safety right now. You don't have to do this. This is not
a reach.
It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't like that. And then right after it, I love this. I absolutely love the Commanders coming up in the end of the first round and getting Amarius Mims after drafting Jaden Daniels, because you're like, okay, well, we kind of need some tackle help here, right? Yes, you bring in a guy who, in my opinion, is one of the best pass protectors in this class already. Limited experience. He has a natural sense of how to protect, whether it's right. And I also believe that he can play left tackle. I believe he can play left tackle. He's the athlete to be able to do it. His pass sets are great, and he has all three. He uses vertical, he uses jump sets, he uses 45 sets. So that is already, it's not easy to go from right to left. It's not. But I believe the athletic ability is there for him to be able to do it if he puts his mind to it, and hopefully he stays healthy for that. But this is a fantastic trade up for the Commanders, who again got Jaden Daniels at number 2 overall. And just real quickly, I mean, Ladd McConkey, give Patrick Mahomes a guy who's going to get open all the time. What about you? What do you got? What are your ideas about this? The last 12 picks here of this draft, and we'll close out with our final thoughts.
Real quick, I can't not comment here on Amarius Mims. If you're not familiar with him out there, because he has not been one of the highly touted offensive tackle names in this class for a long time, like an Olu Fashanu or Troy Fatanu or Talise Fuaga, all these guys who we know and we love and who are absolutely deserving of being a very, very high draft pick in this class. This offensive tackle class is great. Typically, teams have a threshold, just generally speaking, for the NFL. To play offensive tackle, the threshold typically is that you have 33-inch arms.
Mm-hmm.
That's the threshold. Amarius Mims, 36 and an eighth inch arms.
Dude.
His arms, and then his wingspan, 86 inches and 6/8.
Insane.
Okay, let's hold on. Joe Alt is like damn near 6'9" coming out of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Okay. His arm length is 34 and a quarter. His wing is 82 and 6/8. Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State. Arm length 33 and an eighth, wingspan 80 and 5/8. Troy Fatanu, one of my absolute favorite people in this entire draft class. I love him. 34 and 4/8 arm, 81 and 4/8 wing. Tyler Guyton, 34 and an eighth, 82 and 2/8. Amarius Mims, 36th and an eighth, and then 86 and 6/8 wingspan. His arms, his wingspan is just outrageous. And it shows on film. He is. He's just a pterodactyl, man.
If you guys want to hear about us talking about the draft, these tackles, we have an entire top 10 tackle show on the channel. So when you're done here, go over there and listen to us talking about tackles.
And what you're going to hear in that episode is that we think this is in potentially historic offensive tackle class. There are so many terrific offensive linemen. This to me, like you said, Jaden Daniels goes second overall to Washington, and then they come back up in the late first and get Amarius Mims. That's how you build. You're drafting your potential quarterback of the future, and then you go, we are going to get you a stud offensive tackle, and you're going to throw him in there. He does still need a little bit of polish. I think he can play with a little bit more nasty, but the upside for Amarius Mims, that wingspan, his athletic ability, all that stuff, is as high as any offensive tackle in this draft class. So I just wanted to wax on poetically a little bit about this potential move here for Amarius Mims, which I love. I am going to go Graham Barton here to Seattle is one that I look at and I go, I don't know. I love Graham Barton. I think that he's arguably the number 2 interior offensive lineman in this draft class behind Jackson Powers Johnson. I think that he has that ability in him. I think that he's way up there. But to me, and listen, there's surprises every year. And Seattle is not shy about making surprising picks. We've seen them do it a ton. We've also seen Seattle trade out a bunch from a late first-round pick and move into the second. I could see them looking to do that to just accrue some more draft picks because it's what they love to do there in that front office. But if they are sticking and picking, you're looking at other players still available on the board. Amarius Mims still on the board. Adonai Mitchell, if you want to add another young wide receiver into the mix. Geez, maybe Xavier Worthy, even if you're talking about wanting to add a speed playmaker into that offense because you're looking at Tyler Lockett getting up there, getting a little bit long in the tooth. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Graham Barton going this high, going 23 to Seattle. I can kind of understand the logic, but again, John Schneider really loves continuing to trade down. And if he can pull off some sort of double trade out and move out of 23 into the second, I could see it.
I personally love this pick because this is just it's getting your offensive line figured out. Like they have Abraham Lucas at right tackle, they have Charles Cross at left, but the upside of taking a guy like Graham Barton, who I think can play all 5 positions if you absolutely needed him to, is that say Abraham Lucas doesn't work out, because Abraham Lucas was a 4th round pick or third or 4th round pick. Say he doesn't work out. Hey Graham, go knock over to right tackle for us. Hey Graham, go ahead and play right guard for us. Hey, can you? Our center goes down. Think you can give us some snaps here? His versatility is it's empowering this offense, because I think that they're also going to be taking a quarterback at some point in. I don't think it's going to be this draft. It's going to be a little bit late for them at this point. I don't believe they have a 2nd round pick. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but Seattle needs to get their offensive line figured out for life after Geno too. Geno's had to deal with this offensive line interior specifically being poor. And that pressure up the middle for him isn't great. He would much rather be able to step up and out than have to just try to get around all of that. So I think that this makes a lot of sense for them, especially if you can trade back and still get him. I have him as the number 1 interior offensive lineman in this draft, and that's because of his overall versatility. I think that he can play all 5 positions, and that it's a huge boon for him to be able to do that at 6'5", nearly 33-inch arms. So I personally love this for the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay. You sold me on it. I can understand it for sure, because we were talking when we were recording our offensive tackle show. I texted you a couple days before, and I was like, I know Graham Barton played primarily tackle in college, but I have him as an interior offensive lineman. You went, yep, same. I went, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But he still has that ability and the experience of playing tackle. So if you need him to do it, if you need him to kick out there in a pinch, or whatever the case might be, I get the flexibility. You are right that they don't have a 2nd. They have 2/3, which is kind of interesting because they picked 78 and 81. So they've got 2 picks, 3 picks apart, which is going to be kind of fun to see what John Schneider decides to do there.
I wonder if this trade back nets them like a 2nd round pick.
It might,
from the Cardinals. Maybe that's what the play is here. You trade back, you maybe get a 2nd round pick, and then you take a Spencer Rattler or somewhere there, and you just say, hey, sit behind Geno for a year and figure it out. And then you come into this offensive line that's young and it's good, and it's got Graham Barton here now. That sounds fantastic to me.
Yeah. All right, cool. I can see it. Sure. Talk me into it. But I do like it. We texted back and forth about Graham Barton, and I was like, I have him as a dominant interior offensive lineman. It's still JPJ no matter what for me at the number 1 interior offensive lineman, although he is a little bit more specific to a center guard role, whereas Graham Barton does give that flexibility of having experience at tackle, so be able to move around if you need him to. So I can definitely get kind of, you're choosing your favorite flavor here when going Graham Barton over Jackson Powers Johnson. But I think that might be a little bit hard for some people to swallow, taking Graham Barton over JPJ.
I get it.
So any final thoughts here? Any I don't know, crazy predictions, thoughts on these picks? What do you think?
I think a lot of that makes sense. Like there's a lot of picks here that are team, that make sense. Like Terry Arnold to the Jaguars desperately need a cornerback there. The Lions taking Cooper DeJean makes a lot of sense. The Eagles taking Nate Wiggins. Like a lot of these picks do make sense. There's a lot of logic here in terms of team needs. So the quarterback stuff, while I don't like trading up to it, all of those teams need quarterbacks. A lot of these teams, and the Dolphins taking Chop Robinson. Okay, fine. That fine. You probably should be taking offensive line, but here we are still taking other players. Like I get it, but it all makes a lot of sense. And obviously, the 49ers getting rich at defensive line. I think Darius Robinson in that defense makes a lot of sense. You can move him around a ton. They love to do that anyway. So I think overall, the draft makes a lot of sense. It just seems to be a lot of team fits. So I think Lance did a great job of saying this team needs this. How are we going to make it happen? And then going and making it happen. So from that perspective, I like it. I'm just the only one that I don't think makes any sense for him is Tyler Nubin. I think everything else to an extent makes sense in terms of team need and still maybe spending a first round pick on it. So I think overall it's very logical.
I do too. Yeah, we've only got 2 weeks, 2 more recordings before it's draft night, baby.
It's got chills.
Yeah, me too. We are here. We are up against it. We need to talk off air about what this programming is going to look like. I know we floated the idea of having some top 50s. I think we might need to get that up here and get a top 50 going. Who knows? Maybe we put on the PFF mock draft simulator and we just mock an entire first round in one of these episodes.
Yeah, maybe. That could be fun. Do it ourselves.
Yeah, sure. We'll create a mock because guess what? It's really easy to point at what Lance Zierlein did until you're the one that's responsible for pointing the clicker.
That's very true.
So
that's very true.
We should probably put our muscles, where our mouth is and do one for ourselves and see what happens. But hey, good episode, fun stuff. We're getting so close, man. The draft is here. It is a 2-hour drive for me to Detroit Rock City.
I'm looking forward to it for you, man.
Oh man, just gonna absolutely be in heaven. Manna falling from the skies on draft night. So, hey, thank you so much. This was Cover One Draft Weekly. You can find this on YouTube. It is the Cover One College Football channel is where we host this. You can find this podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Give us a follow. It's at John Helmkamp. For me, it is at In Harm's Way 19 for my boy Daniel Harms. And we will catch you guys next week. Have a good one.